Hey everyone, welcome to the That's Allowed podcast. I'm your hostess, Audrienne McKeon, and today we're here with Justin Rambo. Please introduce yourself, Justin.
Well, first, thank you for having me on your podcast. So, as you said, I am Justin Rambo. I am a personal development strategist, and I am based in upstate New York.
Nice. Have you always lived there?
I have born and raised. I don't plan on staying here my whole life. I'm not sure if you're familiar with a company called Kodak, but it was like the biggest film producing
Absolutely, yeah.
company. Yeah, and so I believe my grandparents moved here because of the opportunities with the big three companies, Kodak, Xerox, and Bausch& and Lomb at the time, way
hmm
before I was born. And those companies have since fallen, so there's nothing really here. So I plan on
Yeah.
moving at some point.
So where do you want to go? If you,
Florida,
Florida. Wow,
definitely
don't go right
Florida, yeah.
now.
No, not right now. Not now. It's hot,
hmm
and
hmm
it just before Corona, it's hot in general in the summertime. So, but other than
Absolutely.
that, it's peaceful. We go every summer, so I think that's where we
Yeah.
want to move.
Where do you go every summer?
So my in-laws have a vacation house. I believe it's in Port Charlotte, Florida, but we want to move to Tampa, a bigger city,
Yeah.
more opportunities, more sun, more palm trees, no
Yeah.
winters, things
I'm
like
a
that.
huge fan of Anna Maria Island. That's where my family usually vacations, which is in Tampa Bay. So,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Well, I
there's
have
a
to
there's a
visit that
series of
place.
little islands there that are just super chill, very laid back, has a lovely kind of, family friendly vibe to it. Just a great place to stick your feet in some nice white sand.
Hey, that's all the news I need to hear.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, the first question I always ask, and I'm just going to throw it out here and you answer it however you feel. What is the story you're not telling?
Ooh, the story I am not telling. I would say, all right. So if you follow along with what I'm going to say, there's a story I'm not telling, but there's also that same story that I'm not telling. I am telling. It's just I'm not going down deep enough into the story, if that
Okay,
makes sense.
absolutely. So, let's go
Yeah,
a little bit deeper today.
perfect. You want me to tell the story?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So for what people know me as is an athlete, and now I do personal development coaching.
hmm
And the whole thing sparked because for a long time in my life, I felt less than, I felt inferior. For lack of better words, I felt just not intelligent.
Right.
I was a good athlete, but I didn't feel intelligent, which led me to not feeling accepted if it was outside of sports.
hmm
And so through the years, I've transformed my life, and I've uh, helped myself realize my greatness and my that I am accepted and things like that, and my superpowers. But I guess the story I'm not telling is how deep that actually cuts, because
Yeah,
when you don't feel accepted or when you feel inferior, that permeates every part of your life. So your relationships with your parents, your significant others, your kids, because when there's no value or not as much value placed on you as an individual, everyone takes the brunt of that. So I would
absolutely.
say it's the depth of the hurt or the cut from not feeling enough.
Yeah. And do you have kind of a representative example or an anecdote about feeling inferior or not feeling good enough in a situation?
Yeah. So for me, it honestly all started in first grade, and
Mm,
it was because of school initially. And what happened in first grade, that's when we started to learn how to do math and write paragraphs in long form.
hmm
And we would have to do these things before lunch. So we'd have to solve some math equations. And I believe we had to write a paragraph before lunch. After lunch, we would be able to come back and have recess. Well, I was one of few kids that when we came back from lunch, I hadn't finished anything yet. So while the other kids were playing, I had to finish everything. So that led me to question myself, am I not
Right.
as smart as the other kids? So that was strike one. Strike
Right.
two was we had now assigned math and reading groups. Group
hmm
one, group two, group
Uh-huh.
three. Group three was the lowest group.
The
I was,
remedial group.
yeah. So I was in the lowest group. That's strike two. Strike three is now there's these extra help teachers that come from wherever they come from into our classroom, take a handful of us out to help us with reading and math. That was first grade. And that's when you're starting to have a sense of your own self. So that first
Absolutely.
sense of my own self was, oh, I'm not enough. So that paralleled into me looking for that acceptance from other places.
Mhm.
And for a lot of young males, right? My parents are still married. My father was in the house, but that led me to look for acceptance from my father,
Yeah.
which for me to get it from him, for playing sports would lead to that feeling of acceptance. But I
Right.
needed to look for more acceptance, not just sports because I was good at it.
Mhm.
And as I've gotten older, I realized the reason why I could never find it the way I wanted to from him is because he has the same personality as I do.
Yeah.
So it's just like these snowball effects that you don't realize until you get older.
Absolutely. So you said earlier that you had listened to a couple of my podcasts. I'm going to recommend one to you, which is a story called Misimpression People Appeaser. And it is
Mm,
about my experience with an abusive first grade teacher who decided to make me feel inferior on
mm,
purpose and to kind of put me in the remedial group and the rest from there. Because once that happens, once you kind of feel like you are labeled remedial, it sticks with you.
big
It
time.
sticks with you. And, for me, it wasn't until my senior year of high school that I finally had a teacher who looked at me and went, wait, what? Why? You and these grades don't make sense together. What's going on? And no one had ever said that to me. And so for the first time in my life, I started to think, oh, maybe I'm not stupid.
Mm. So you
You
caught
know?
that in your senior year in high school, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's cool. I wish I would have caught it my senior year, but by my senior year, man, it was like I was too far gone
Oh, yeah.
into like what I was doing.
Sure.
But yeah, that hit me a little bit later on. So not quite as early as you in terms of when you realized, oh, I'm actually smart. I just learned in a different way. My learning curve is different.
And
And the
where was the
crazy
turning
part,
point? Where was the turning point for you?
so what happened was, all right. So to make a long story short, I went to school. Um, I played college football for 1 year in
Hmm.
Buffalo,
Hmm.
and then I had a daughter, so I had to come back. So I had a daughter at an early age, so I started working full time. I didn't like that. Let me go back to college. Okay, dropped out of college again. So I dropped out of college twice.
Hmm.
Started working again. Oh man, there has to be something more in life. I'm a little bit older now, so this time I'm in my going on mid 20s.
Hmm.
Let me try college one more time. By this time, I'm a lot more calm. I start to understand myself a little bit more. And I have two daughters now, not just one,
Hmm.
but two. So my first daughter was 21. My second daughter was 20. I was 25. And the third stint in college, I graduated. And you know what? It was easier for me. And I had to realize I was never really taught how to learn or how to study or how to do homework because those things can pile up. So by me feeling like I did in first grade, well, forget studying, forget doing homework.
Yeah.
But once I learned how to do those things and learn that I learned in a different way
Hmm.
and I can, accomplish anything, then the sky was the limit for me. So after that, after college, I got a job. And then after that, I opened my first business. And then I had that for about 4.5 years. And then after that, I left that business, tried to figure out really what I wanted to do. And then I had the aha moment, which I'm sure we'll get into. I had an aha moment, wrote a book, started my second company, started a podcast, and have just been going ever since.
Well, obviously, I want to hear the aha moment.
Yeah. So everyone always asks me, okay, so what made you get into personal development? What made you become a personal development coach? And for me, it was, we'll go back to my first business, which I
Hmm.
started in 2000. It was late 2013. But for anyone that has owned their own business, there's ups and downs.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this was a brick and mortar personal training studio. So it wasn't just, right now what I do, I can do it from home. But
Mm-hmm.
there you have to pay your overhead costs and things like that. So there's a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
And that made me search within myself because you have these high and low moments in life. And within that internal search, I heard someone say something about personal development. And I said, well, what is personal development? Is it like a button you press? Is it a book you read? I didn't know what personal development was. So the more I started listening to different people that would say the term, the more I started to go within to search for myself. So between 2014 to 2013, I was just constantly, or sorry, 2014 to 2018, I was constantly working on myself as an individual because there were some areas I struggled with that really uh, hurt me in life. So A,
Mm.
feeling inferior, but B, the second part was I had really bad anger issues because of a lot of those things.
Yeah.
And so I had to heal out a lot of those processes. I had to get by myself, figure myself out, but also connect the dots from the past. And so that was 2014 to 2018. 2018 is when I took it a little bit more serious. 2019, I said, okay, I'm at a good place mentally. I have to figure some more things out. What would happen if I dedicated a whole year to eliminating all distractions, turning down the noise in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
just searching within and being productive? And so I'll never forget. It was Monday, February 25th, 2019. At the time, I was working a 9 to 5 job. I came home early. My wife was at work still. The kids were at school. And I started reading this self-help book. So I'm reading the book, and then I get an aha moment. So before I talk about the aha moment, I'm going to backtrack because when I decided to take 2019 really, really serious in terms of eliminating distractions,
Yeah.
that meant no social media, that meant no TV, that meant
Mm-hmm.
no music. And what I
Wow.
mean by music is because I wanted to tune into myself and not be distracted by outside noise. So what I was doing in the morning at 4:30 a.m., I would wake up, come downstairs. My wife was asleep, the kids were asleep. It was quiet. I would meditate, do my mantras, affirmations, and ask, what is it I should be doing with my life? And
Mm-hmm.
I was doing that. And that was part of my process in 2019 that I thought I was going to take a whole year to figure myself out. But because I had minimal distractions and because I was going within, that answer came to me February 25th, 2019, which was, you've always been a self-aware person. You've always looked for growth. You've always overcome pain. People have always come to you for advice. Personal development is your thing. But
Right.
in personal development, you need to write a book. Now, this is just a feeling, right? Not really words, but a feeling that came over me. And so I said, I'm not going to write a book. No one's going to read a, like, what have I done? So I thought about it a little bit more. I said, you know what? People do come to me for a lot of life advice. I'm going to write a book anyway. Not only am I going to write a book, by that night, when the idea hit me, I had my business LLC, the EIN, and the logo all created because it was one of those, I call it a download day, where
Yep.
everything you're looking for just comes to you at once because you've been so you've been going after it, you've been seeking it, but you haven't been distracted by the outside noise. It's like a radio frequency when you're trying to turn the dial and you hear some static,
Mm-hmm.
turn it a little bit more, you hear a little bit more static, you kind of hear what's going on the other side. But once you hit that right channel, it's boom and you're ready to go. And so for me, it was just off to the races after that. And the book itself, since I was not distracted and I knew myself because I took so many years to search within and to do different things, it took me 6 weeks to write the book.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that aha moment was the most important pivotal shift in my life. But everything
Yeah.
that happened before that was the thing that led up to it.
Isn't that always the way?
Hmm.
I always think of it like you're trying to pick a lock, you know? And it's like you hear that one pin go in, you know, and you're like, oh, oh, and then it's like it seems to take so long for that last pin to
Oh yeah.
finally fall. But then when it does, it's like everything lines up. And just like you said, I love that feeling when it's like it's just flowing through you.
Oh, It's like being in a zone.
Yes.
You hear people say, like when I played sports, there are
Mhm.
certain games where you're in a zone. Things just like your body's just moving. You're
Yeah.
not really thinking. You're just aware of your body and space, and things are just going right. For a good 4 to 5 months last year, I was in a zone. I mean, while I was writing a book, while I was starting the company, it was just a things were just flowing through me. But it's because I took that time to discover myself.
Absolutely. And I absolutely love that as a really useful tool of just turning, as I see the book is called Turn Down the Noise, right?
Yep.
That's wonderful. Everyone out there, why don't you tell them where they can find this book just right here, right now, before we go
Yeah,
on?
so the book is on Amazon. You can get it in printback or ebook, and it's called "Turn Down the Noise." It's about eliminating distractions. It's literally the story, not in story format, but what happens when you do it. So
Hmm.
eliminating distractions to then find your passion and purpose and chase the things you want to chase in life. It doesn't necessarily mean go start a business. It doesn't necessarily mean become social media famous. It's whatever your definition of life success is. And I always say, and the reason why I named the company Versatile Success and the podcast is because for me, success is multidimensional, multidirectional. There's no
Hmm.
one way to achieve it, and everyone has their own definition of it. So if my success is just being a good husband, that's my definition. If another person has a definition of becoming a multimillionaire, that's their definition, but the underlying theme is you still have to know yourself so that way you don't get lost along the way.
Absolutely. I love everything that you just said. I think it's so important for people to recognize that it's not just about, I think we're kind of familiar now that there's different learning styles, right?
Hmm.
Like I had a really hard time reading when I was a kid. I loved to read, but I was a very slow reader, like a painfully slow reader. If there had been audiobooks back then, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I would have listened to all the books, you know,
Yeah.
because I absolutely love audio content. And I think I'm just an audio learner. I
Hmm.
would listen to, like, my mom had these Dr. Seuss books on tape, and I memorized all of them with all the
Really?
different voices and everything. Yeah, I could just like rattle them off.
See, it's interesting though, because I'm glad you said that. When we're younger, we're taught to learn. Well, at least I don't know about now, but back then
Mhm.
we were taught to learn it in a certain way. And
Right.
you're so young, you think, okay, well, that's the way I'm supposed to learn. And that's the only way.
Right.
Not realizing like your gift, the way you learn is it beats the learning curve of a lot of people, but it just wasn't implemented in the system at that time. And so think a lot of kids grow up feeling like, okay, this is the only way to do certain things
Yeah.
when there's multiple ways. You just have to find your way.
Right. And if I had known that back then, I could have just taken a little tape recorder, recorded myself reading something, and then
Hmm.
listened to it back, you
Yep.
know? But I didn't get it at the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just about learning styles though. Like you said, everyone has their own vision of success. Everyone has their own gifts. Everyone is so, I mean, at base we all want the same things, but we're all so unique.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so important, like you said, to tune out because there's so many gurus out there who are going to try to tell you, do it like this, do it like this. It worked for me.
Right.
And it's not going
The
to work for
absolute
you.
statements. Yeah.
Right. It's not going to work for you because that was them. And that worked for
Hmm.
them because they're them.
Right.
I love the idea of just eliminating outside influence and just listen to yourself because
Yeah.
you know on a soul level what you are here to do.
Oh, you're speaking my language. Listen,
Yeah,
the answers you seek, and this is my opinion, and it sounds like you agree, the answers you seek in life are already in front of you. You just
100%.
haven't tuned into the right frequency yet. Like you just haven't
Mhm.
eliminated distractions, but they're always in front of you. Like when I had the aha moment, as you heard me say, I had to revert back and say, well, people have always come to me for advice, X, Y, and Z. The answers were already there. I was just too distracted with my own issues and lack of identity, which was
Mhm.
huge. Once I found myself, the answers became so clear. So I'm so glad. Yeah, you're right. It's always there.
Yeah. And here's what's going on right now is I feel like people think they have to be tuned in because of the coronavirus and everything that's going on. They feel like
Hmm.
they have to be listening to the radio and, listening listening to the radio, watching the news and just figuring out like what's going on, in the world outside and kind of staying tuned in. And I think that keeps you hooked into one story.
Yep.
It's the story that the media wants you to hear right
You
now.
become a drone, like you become a robot.
Exactly. And there are very strong opinions about
Hmm.
what's being said, but it's all the same stuff that's being said, right? It's
Hmm.
it's it's polarizing us in like predictable ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And I believe everything is some type of, there's energy. Everything is energy,
Yeah.
right? And for those that may be listening to this and they don't believe me, just think about the one or two times where you saw a certain post or a certain status or a certain comment and you had a visceral reaction to it.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever that thing was saying, it caused you to have some type of emotion, which is a form of energy. And so for a lot of people, including myself, I find myself looking sometimes and I'll tell my wife, you know what, I'm just going to stay off social media for today, or I'm not
Mhm.
going to watch the news or anything like that, because you're right. You can get trapped in a cycle. And I
Yes.
feel like if people really paid attention to history, because I'm a huge history buff, you
Mhm.
sort of know the cycle of things. You sort of know
Right.
how people react and how society is. There's nothing new under the sun. We just
Yeah.
happen to live in a different year. And
Yeah.
so I tend to not pay attention to that stuff because it messes with me, you know, it invokes some type of reaction or some type of emotion, which steers me away from me.
Right. And the bottom line is that when you listen to, that input, you again have a predictable output. And
Hmm.
so what happens is history repeats itself. Whereas if you can separate yourself and think, what do I actually want to create in the world? Not what I think is probable, not what I think is, likely to happen. What do I want to create in the world? And when you're able to kind of, like you said, tune out the noise and tune into your own energy and
Hmm.
listen to what authentically you want to create in the world, you'd be amazed what you can actually create in the world.
It's a beautiful feeling. It's a beautiful thing, and it gives you that sense of purpose, that sense of fulfillment that I think a lot of people search for because they are lost in their own identity of who they truly are as an individual.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I believe, honestly, for me, personal development is the foundation to build upon. And the reason I say that is because, as the saying goes, you can't build a house on sand, because if there's a storm, it's going to blow over. But if you
Hmm.
build it deep enough into bedrock, you have a better chance of withstanding the storm. But also, if you're going to drill that deep, that also means that you've surveyed the land. And since you've surveyed the land, you've surveyed you know what the climate is like, you know what the weather's like. So you know what building materials to use. And you build on a solid foundation, which is you and not the world.
Absolutely. I love that so much. So, the next question I usually ask is, what has blocked you from telling this depth of the story in the past?
Oh, that's easier for me. It was the fear. So it's crazy how this works. It was a fear of feeling inferior or stupid. It was the same
Hmm.
fear. It
Hmm.
was the fact that I felt that my whole life because of academics. Now, the one thing, academics, like I said, it permeates every other area. So I felt like if I say something wrong, if I mess up my words, if someone doesn't agree with me, or if I don't sound intelligent, I'm reliving my first grade experience, not realizing it. So I'm then holding myself back, which is actually the most selfish thing I can do, because everyone has the most unique gift of helping other people. The most selfish thing you can do is help someone because it makes you feel good, but that also helps that person as well.
Yeah.
So when you hold your own gifts back because of your pride, that is hurting other individuals. I was I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he's a really gifted speaker. He's very charismatic. People are just drawn to him. But this is like in regular conversations or in small groups. And he's trying to start something. I said, you need to go into your superpower, which is like speaking and being around people. He's like, I know, but I said, okay, what would happen if Dr. Martin Luther King worked in an office in a cubicle his whole life.
Mhm.
He said, man, that would be such a waste. He's like, oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
He had the oh my gosh moment. And
Mhm.
so you don't waste your gifts. So I would say for me, just me thinking, my perception of what others would think of me, they would think I felt that I was stupid, is the one thing that held me back the most, hands down.
Yeah. I often use the example because so many people are kind of addicted to Netflix right now. Like,
Hmm.
imagine all those people who created this wonderful content that is helping you get through this experience had listened to all the people who said, oh, you'll never make it as an actor. Oh, you'll never make it as a director. Oh, it's too difficult. Don't go into the arts, go into something practical. Imagine if that had happened and you were stuck right now with no entertainment, no way to distract yourself or get yourself up out of this kind of funk that you're in right now. You know, everyone has a gift, and your gift is completely yours. And if you don't give it to the world doesn't have it.
Right. And the craziest part too is, let's say you and I have the same gift, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared to utilize my gift, but I'm watching you all the time. And I'm saying, wow, she speaks really well. She's so charismatic. People just flock to her. I can't speak like that, but I know I have some type of gift like that. I think a lot of people, what happens is they watch other people for so long that are at the top of their game, not realizing what they went through to get there. But
Mm-hmm.
the other part is they don't realize you can have the same gift and use it in a different way. So the point in case, for me to do even this podcast, a year ago, I had never been on camera, not even on my own phone, to watch myself or to hear myself. And mind you, I had a personal training business for 4 years. I never got behind the camera to talk about fitness or nutrition or anything like that because I was too afraid of what would come out my mouth, and how people would perceive me. But the beauty is, once you find yourself and once you understand your purpose, then you understand what you have to do to chase those goals. And that
Yeah.
some of the things you have to do, maybe some of the things that you're really afraid of. But here's the
I
beauty.
guarantee you they will be. I
Oh,
always
yeah.
say everything you want is on the other side of your fear. So as
Yep.
soon as you think about something and it scares you a little bit, that's the thing you have to do next.
Well, here's the
That
beauty of
thing.
that. Here's the beauty. I'm going to break that down a little bit more too,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because for me, I had never been on camera. I talk fast. I have big lips. I have a big tongue. So my words get jumbled up and people are like, okay, what'd you say? I didn't hear you. And I knew that, but I knew once I found myself, okay, personal development, I'm going to have to get my voice out there. I'm going to have to talk to people. I'm going to have to help people. I said, okay, I'm going to start small. I'm going to record myself on my phone and just listen to the videos. Okay, I did that for a while and it was awkward to hear yourself, to see yourself.
Hmm.
Okay, I got over that fear. The next thing was to show my wife. She was like, yeah, it's a little awkward, but then she got used to it. The next step was to put it on social media. Really weird. Now you're putting yourself out there to the world, but in a little bit more controlled environment because I was editing the videos.
Yeah.
Okay, I got used to that. Okay, let me go live now. Oh, different ball game. So then I
Hmm.
started going live. But through that whole process, I realized I actually love speaking. I actually
Yeah.
love being on camera. And I'm gifted because, not because of how I speak, my superpower is my charisma, my passion. You can hear it, you can see it when it comes out. It may not be I'm the best, orator, but how I actually speak and deliver it, that's my gift. And that's what I actually love. And so when you go and face your fear, you might find the thing that you're really fearful of, you actually love, or you might find a component of it that you're really strong in, but you would have never known unless you faced that fear.
Yeah. So let me just mirror back to you. It's really important to go on a gradient. And so what you discovered is that by starting with just that first little step that you were like, okay, this much I can handle right now. And just do that first because
Hmm.
you have to start from where you are. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they skip to like step 5 and then
Yep.
fail at it and go, well, there you go. I wasn't meant to
Yeah.
do this. And they give up.
Yep.
But no, you got to start at step 1 because that's where you're at right now.
Hmm.
And again, it's that comparison of, we look at other people who are further along than us and we think we should be where they are. but you don't know what their path is. You don't
Oh,
know, like you said, how long it took them to get there, or how much help they had, or anything, you know?
hmm.
You don't even know where they're going.
Right. Yeah, you don't sometimes, and people always say, "Oh, I wish I was that person and wish I was this person." You don't know what goes on behind closed doors. You might not, you got to
Mhm.
be careful what you wish for. And
Yeah.
so you have your own strengths and your own gifts. They do as well, but you might have different ones to lead to the same place. And so you go through different things in life. So whatever you're equipped with, it's meant for you to utilize to go through whatever next stages you want to go to.
And that's part of why I do this podcast, is because I help people tell these stories that other people don't see. And so it's really helpful sometimes for us to look at and go, oh, I thought that they were having this experience. It turns out they're actually having this experience,
Hmm.
which I can totally relate to. And the other thing is, I think we often undervalue the things that we're good at. So we look at other people who are good at something that we're not good at, and we think, wow, I wish I was good at that thing. Not realizing that they're looking at you going, man, I wish I was good at what they're good at,
Hmm.
you know?
That's huge. That's so huge. Actually, I think who was that? I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, you don't realize what you're if you're not tuned in enough, or if you're just sort of like going about life, you don't realize what you're actually really, really good at. You don't realize what your superpowers are because they come so natural to you.
Yeah,
And so, and I'll tell
exactly.
you, here's an example. Back to first grade, when I realized I was a good athlete, is because it was later in the day, and I was finally able to go out and do recess. So we walk in a straight line, right? And first graders, you walk in a straight line, get to the door. The teacher says, "Okay, you guys can go now." And when she says that, that means you can run out to the playground. And so she says it. I sprint to the playground, and then I don't hear anyone around me. I'm like, oh, did she call everyone back? Did I leave too early? Maybe they're still at the door. So I stop and I turn around, and they're running, but they're way behind me. And for me, it was like the realization of I'm actually good at something.
Yeah,
And so it was just one of those, and you can pair that, you can bring that with life as well. You don't realize what you're actually good at because it's so natural to you. Now, this is
yeah,
first grade. I had been running from whatever age you can run until first grade. I didn't realize I was fast because it was so natural to me. And so
exactly.
sometimes you don't realize it until you actually do it. Or for me, it was that reflection moment where I had to really, really reflect over my life and put the things together and realize, oh gosh, this is a pattern. I must be really good at it. And the other thing I did to help confirm certain things is, are you familiar with the DISC assessment?
No.
It's like the D, the I. So it's the personality assessment, and
Okay.
so there's four quadrants. So most people fall into one of the four. So
Mhm.
you have the D, the I, the S, the C. The D is a dominant personality. So those are the people who are more demanding, like drivers, and they tend to get things done, but they're short fused, and
Mhm.
they typically are like the CEOs or the managers or people that go and do stuff. And then you have the I, who are influencers, right? They're the life of the party.
Right.
They're gregarious, and they're just really people pleasers and people. And
Yep.
then you have and then you have the S, who are more steady, right? Status quo, don't really rock the boat, keep it how it is. And then you have the C, who are very analytical and more cautious and things like that. So I took this test, and it gave me my dominant traits and my adaptive traits. Dominant would be the one that you're most naturally gifted in,
Mhm.
when you're your natural self. Adaptive is when you're like at work and you know someone's watching you.
Right, right.
And my dominant is a D. And
Hmm.
then it breaks down different parts of what the D means. And that helped me understand myself even more, because it started to help me piece together certain things, including how my dad's personality is and why
Mm.
I was looking for that acceptance from him, because we have the exact same personality. But it was one of the cool things. So I would argue for anyone, once you find yourself, do some more research on yourself and the
Yeah.
different traits about yourself, because it helps you identify certain things. It helps you identify what I call your superpowers. Because I told you I had a anger issue growing up because of how I felt. So when I had to think about speaking, I said, well, how do I typically capture everyone's attention whenever I spoke in life and just in general? It was either when I was very passionate or if I got angry, but the motions in the physical body were the same. Oh, It was the passion.
Right.
That's why I captivated them. So my one thing with what I once saw as a negative actually was my superpower. It became my
Right.
superpower. I was just using it the wrong way.
Mhm.
Same thing, passion, but I just used it the wrong way. So once you find those things, you can then take the good out of it and use it. It was the coolest
Absolutely.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how, we can reframe things in our mind. The same physical experience can completely reframe it. Like I'm a performer. I've been a performer pretty much my whole life, and I've always had stage fright.
Really?
Yeah, every time, just before I go on stage, I get this sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. And then I
Hmm.
get out on stage and I'm fine again. I get out there, I'm like performing and having a good time and it's great. But over the years I started to associate that sick feeling with excitement, like
Mm.
something good is about to happen. And so I was able to reframe it over time as, oh, that's just my adrenaline
Yeah.
rush that I get before I go on stage. So instead of seeing it as stage fright, I now see it as getting pumped up for the performance. Same
Oh,
physical experience, right?
can I dive deeper into that one?
Absolutely.
All right. So here's the coolest thing is the other day someone said something about me. They said, I forgot exactly what it was, but they were also like, you remember when you weren't like that? And I'm like, no, I've always been like this. So neuroscience proves that once you start to think of things in a different way, like how,
Mm-hmm.
like something happens, if you start to reframe how you think of it, you can rewire the neurons in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
You can rewire how they fire off, and that makes a new connection. And so for me, I forgot that I used to be a certain way until someone brings it out and tells me, oh, you used to be that way. But in my mind, I've always been this way. It's just I reframed so many different things to become the person I am now and to see and receive the things that are going to help me grow as an individual. So by you reframing it, just rewiring the circuits in your brain of how you picture it. And so I think that's a very powerful tool that anyone can use. And yes, it takes time, but when you get on the other side, it's almost like you've already been there.
Exactly. All right. So the next question is, how did this change you? And we've already touched on it a little bit. It actually rewired your brain as
Mhm.
you're explaining. And so how has it changed you and how has it changed your life?
It from every facet. My marriage,
Mm-hmm.
me being a father, being an individual, a person. In fact, my old high school, which I wasn't the greatest student, I was just a really good athlete, and I think I graduated high school with like a 1 point something GPA. Right, I barely got by, but they let me get by. And I had anger issues in high school, so I would get in trouble. A couple of years ago, more like 5 years ago now, they brought me back twice in the same year to speak to athletes who weren't doing well in school, like myself. Because a lot of my teachers apparently had followed me on social media and they started to see a change in me and they followed me for a while and they recommended me to come speak to the kids in the auditorium 2 times. And this is when I had the personal training studio. So this is before I'm doing the personal development stuff, but I'm speaking to the kids and I'm like, wow, this actually does feel pretty good. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm not saying anything important. And there were a panel of other speakers. After we were done, all the kids came over to me to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's helped me to realize that I have a bigger purpose than just my ego. I have a bigger purpose than just my fears. I have a bigger purpose than just Justin Rambo himself. And just growing as a person, working on yourself, because personal development is a lifelong thing. You start to appreciate things more, but all the other areas in your life rise with you. It's like you're all in this. What is it? All ships rise with the tide, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have these different parts in your life that are all different ships, but you're in the same body of water. And so once that body of water rises, everything else rises with it.
Absolutely. That is so true. And I think, you were saying that you've discovered this kind of charisma and passion that draws people in, but I think it's more than that. I think it's because you have this authenticity where you're able to just be you in this really natural and beautiful way. And people are really drawn to that.
Yeah.
So,
I would say I didn't always have that.
hmm
A lot of times I tried to put on a what is it, like a picture of perfection.
oh, yeah,
I didn't
the
want to let
mask.
everyone in. Oh yeah, the mask. Didn't want to
hmm
let everyone in, but that's tiring. It's
It's
tiring.
exhausting.
It's
It
so
is
exhausting,
exhausting.
and it doesn't make you as relatable. So
hmm
I've had to consciously work on it because going back to my disc assessment, my dominant trait, we usually don't do that.
Yeah,
But when you're conscious of yourself, when you always try to improve yourself, you start to understand the areas and the gaps that you need to fill in order to keep growing. So I realized I needed to let go of that mask.
absolutely. So, who do you think particularly needs to hear this right now?
I would say, and this is usually who comes to me as well, any individual who feels lost, you feel stuck, you're
hmm
not sure what to do in life, you're not sure how you fit into this thing called life, you're not sure of who you are as an individual, but there's this weird feeling that there's more. You're
Yeah,
not sure who you are, but you know there's more and you want to discover it, but you don't know where to start from because you haven't built on that solid foundation yet. So you're trying to start in all these different places, and all these different places are not your foundation. So anyone who is looking for more in life but not sure of themselves, I would recommend, honestly, start to date yourself, get by yourself,
I
start to
love that.
understand yourself,
Yes,
because
date
that's the best thing
yourself.
you can do. And
hmm
what I and schedule the dates. When
hmm
I said I got up at 4:30 every morning to come down into my basement when it was dark and quiet, that was a scheduled date where I got to check in with myself, the good and the bad,
Yeah,
right? Because the good you can expound upon, the bad you can expound upon as well. So it's always growth, no matter how you look at it. And that exercise of dating yourself and talking to yourself, getting to know yourself is one of the most beneficial things. Couple that with putting down an affirmation or a mantra, or whatever you want to do, of who you want to become,
yeah,
or use those words, repeat it daily. And here's the other thing about the rewiring your neurons is my affirmation is I'm a powerful, hardworking family man who will stop at nothing in order to achieve physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, monetary success in order to break generational curses and create generational wealth. I've been saying that for about 2.5 years now.
hmm
When I say it, it's so automatic.
hmm
When I read it and when I actually realize what I'm saying, I'm doing those things because I've rewired a lot of things from just saying those words repeatedly over and over daily. And so, yeah, to get by yourself and date yourself, write out who you want to be, say it daily, and then just keep working on yourself.
I love that. So I read a book a long time ago called The Artist's Way, and it was one of those
Mm,
books that really like blew my head open and really made me change a lot of things about my life. And one of the things they suggested, the author suggests, is to take yourself on dates. And so this was like such a huge thing for me at the time. But I would go out to, art galleries by myself, or I would go out to dinner, by myself. And it was super awkward for me because I'm a very social person.
mm,
And I always just felt so weird, like sitting there by myself. But after a time, I really looked forward to those dates with myself. And, even now, during Corona, I think a lot of people's normal routines have been interrupted. And we've created this kind of new normal for ourselves. And one of the questions I like to ask people is like, what is it that you've created during this time that you plan to keep? And so for
mm.
me, it's that I take a long walk in nature every day because that way I can kind of get away from like the house and everything that's going on, but I'm out where I'm not likely to see other humans.
Yeah.
And so that's been a real lifesaver for me. So I'm wondering if there's anything that a new habit that you've created during this kind of Corona lockdown time that you plan to keep.
That's a great question. Um, I would honestly say I haven't created any new habits, but what
Mhm.
I've done is I've enhanced a lot of things.
Mhm.
And the reason I say that is because I was already on a trajectory of doing what I'm doing now,
Yeah.
but this gave me the time to enhance what I'm doing
Yeah.
now. And for me, that was a game changer, right? Like when I sent you a message earlier, is this video or audio, even something as simple as the enhancements of the visual, right?
Mhm.
Is a big deal. And people are like, well, why? It's a visual thing. Well, for a lot of people, they're visual just like me. So if
Yeah.
they see something, for instance, that is low quality versus high quality, they're going to look at the high quality thing. But my message now can speak to them because they paid attention because they first caught the visual, and now my message is getting to them. So for me, it was the enhancement of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. It was the biggest game changer. But there's another thing that I've discovered actually during Corona. It wasn't necessarily a habit, but it was a discovery,
Mhm.
is that I'm an extrovert. In most of my podcast episodes, I told everyone I was an introvert. I thought I was an introvert because I don't mind being by myself. When Corona hit, everyone's like, "Oh, how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm fine. I don't mind being by myself in terms of going out in the world." But I've discovered that I'm an extrovert.
Mhm.
And that discovery came in the form of when I did that DISC assessment. The D is a task-oriented person who's an extrovert.
Mhm.
So then had to think, wait a minute, I'm an extrovert? Let me think. Anytime I've excelled in life, I was always in front of a group of people. It wasn't in the office, it wasn't in a cubicle. It was when I was in front of people. So all those years where I tried to avoid people because I thought I was an introvert, I was doing myself a disservice. So
Mhm.
that is one of the keys to knowing yourself and trying to work on yourself constantly, because you actually discover, oh, wait, this is me. Okay, let me run in this direction. So one thing that Corona has actually helped is me taking that DISC assessment. And by taking that DISC assessment, I'm no longer just moving in a certain path. I'm sprinting in a certain path now because it just gave me that sense of awareness. So yeah, I would say no habits, just the enhancement and some discoveries.
Yeah. So speaking of message, what would you say is the main message or takeaway from your story for our audience?
My main message or takeaway. My main message and takeaway in life is just get to know yourself, because I feel like a lot of problems are solvable, or at least copable. I don't know if that's a word, but you can cope with them
Yeah.
if you get to know yourself. And you'll see a lot of celebrities that started in childhood, right? So you have I don't want to throw any names out, but they started as a celebrity or child actor, and they grew into adulthood. But we saw a lot of their destruction as they grew into adulthood because they never took the time out, and they couldn't take the time out to get to know themselves.
Yeah.
And so I say, if you don't know yourself, you're going to bounce around to different places. You're going to try different things, and a lot of things are not going to work out for you. So then you deal with a lot of the ups and downs of life that are avoidable. And I always give this, I guess, description. When you're rooted and you're grounded, you're not going to go every way the wind blows. But if you're moving around because you don't know where you are or who you are, you're going to move around every time the wind blows. So get to know yourself, understand yourself, and then be true to yourself through life. Always grow as an individual.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So I'm
No
going to give you a
problem.
chance now. I usually say here, is there anything else you want the audience to know? And that's usually where you kind of repeat where everyone can find you and how they can get all the wonderful gifts that you give out to the world.
Perfect. Well, you can find me. My website is versatilesuccess.com. You can also find the podcast on any of the podcast platforms, which is the Versatile Success Podcast. The book is on Amazon, called Turn Down the Noise. And we just released a 30-day lost and found program, which is about self-discovery, understanding who you are, your superpowers, your gifts, and how to use that stuff going forward. With that, you get a personal development plan, and you get the DISC assessment for free. Not only the DISC assessment, as I break the things down for you and coach you through it, weekly emails, weekly tips, and things like that. So that's right on the website, versatilesuccess.com. And I'm just excited to be doing what I'm doing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.